Right, I'm back on the car. We've got heavy thunderstorms at the moment. You can probably hear the rain dripping. We're just having a little break at the moment. It's still raining, which is good because it means the neighbours have the windows shut. They're not going to hear so much noise. It's built up where I am. Right, what I've been doing, what I'm working on today is the e30. The engine's been rebuilt. We've had new rings, cams, bearings, just a overhaul really, because it was it's been about 5 years and it's done quite a bit. What I'm having to do is, these are the original, not the original, these are the engine mounts I made. So that is the actual bush for the rear arm, for the rear suspension. I had some bent rear arms, so I just cut off this tube because it had the bushing in it, and that's roll cage bar, which seems to be beefy enough. But I made this out of 3mm. This side's all right, but the other side bent quite a lot. So what I've done is I've cut out some 5mm steel and bolted it to the side of the engine. Also, I already had one for the other side, but out of 5mm. This was the worst side. I think this gets more of the torque. So I might have to cut the bit of tube off there, or I might be able to weld to it. So I don't know until I get it in the car. I've done the clutch. It's got new clutch plates in it. They were quite badly worn. They were off a car that I bought. So they were off Ford Cosworth. So yeah, I've had to change a few things just to get them on. I've had to make up a bracket for the tensioner. Yeah, because it's not running a water pump. It did have a bracket, but I don't know what's happened to that. It's disappeared somewhere. So yeah, that's done now. I've managed to get the gearbox in. That is a Quafe 15G dog box. So you can change gear without the clutch, change the gear really quickly. I've had to put a Ford Cortina release bearing in there, and that is a BMW clutch arm. So I've just got to do a little bit more work on that so they marry up. But once I've done that, I've got to roll. I'm very restricted for space in here. And I have to roll the engine out on the stand into the driveway. Obviously it's pouring down the rain at the moment, and then push the car out so I can put the engine in from the side. It works. Took it out right without taking the bonnet off, so that should just slot in. What I tend to do is put a piece of 25 by 50 timber on the steering rack. I'll probably put it here, so you know you've got enough clearance, and then I can work out where the engine mount's going to go. So with the chassis, the engine mounts will be welded to the chassis. I've got some rails. Right, these are the plates that get welded onto the chassis. They will, one-handed. They will be welded on that sort of spacing. Obviously I'll have the engine mount in between, and that'll hold it all in nice and tight. This is the one that bent, the 3mm one. So I thought 3mm would be okay. I mean, that's done, that was flat. That's done a couple of 2-3 rallies, I think. So that would have given up eventually. I started making a new one out of 5mm. It's not the easiest stuff to work with. And plus the 5mm I had wasn't quite wide enough, so I think there's a bit welded on here or something. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, didn't need it because I found one I'd made previously out of 5mm, so I just used that, and it had the holes drilled already because it's not easy drilling holes in 5mm. So that's the next job. Well, the slave cylinder, the release bearing for the clutch is the next job, and then I can clean these up, get the engine, get the car out of the garage, get the engine where it needs to go, get the car back in the garage, weld the brackets or tack weld them, pull the engine out, put it back in, weld everything up, put it back in again. So in and out, and you know, I need to give the car clean as well. I've not used it for a couple of years with COVID, and it is a shame. I've got new discs to go on the front because they're totally gone. I've got to put new fire extinguishers in it. I've taken the seats out of this car, and put them in the red car that I've been using, rather than buying 2 sets of seats. So I'll just swap the seats over. But we've got a rally coming up in 4 weeks' time, and then after that, we've got a rally that I'll be using the red car in, so I have to swap it all back again. Yeah, and it'll be good to get it all back together again. Looking forward to firing it up. Right, this is the BMW clutch arm. I'm not sure if it's E30 or E36, or if they're the same. This is the release bearing of a Ford Cortina. Because the gearbox I'm using is designed for a Ford, it just won't quite fit where I want it to fit. But it's so close. I reckon I can take a tiny bit off these edges here, so I can get the pressure from there onto where it needs to be here. This is the other one I was using. This was machined up. It was bits welded together and then put on a lathe. That's the BMW release bearing, which is totally different to the other one. So the shaft on the BMW is a lot bigger than the gearbox shaft that I'm using. So I had to use this tube, which came out of a BMW gearbox. So it was just sitting, and the clutch center plate was narrower than the BMW one. So the BMW one wouldn't work. That's why this was fitted. I needed the spacer to push it out more. And that used to work, but this was just floating in the gearbox. It wasn't fixed to anything. So I don't know, that could have been causing problems, or anyway, I had problems with the clutch, so I thought it was time to redo it. And that worked, but yeah, I did have problems, so it could have been that. So let me pull these off and see if I can fit it where it needs to go. Right, I used the hacksaw and a file, just took a bit off the edges. So there's little raised bits here. That's not going to rotate now, and it can move that way, because obviously the arm's going to come out and in. Yeah, and it's hitting where it should be hitting. So, I mean, even if that plastic was to come off, it's still going to be touching the sides. But I mean, that's how it's designed to work, rest of the plastic. So, fingers crossed, I think that's that done now. Alright, there's the original. Well, that's the one I was using. All I had done was welded an extension. I welded a bolt round the top onto the slave cylinder. So the new one, that's an Audi V10. Yes, so this one I've made slightly longer because I've worked out with the different, what am I doing, it's different. Oh yeah, it's a different way the release bearing works. We haven't got so much space as we've got more distance to make up. So I think the problems I had was overheating it when it was welded. It had already been welded and I extended it again. So, and I don't know how old that slave cylinder was. It might not have had anything to do with that, but I thought I'd put a new one on anyway. got it in. It's a nightmare trying to get the engine onto the gearbox, but it wasn't too bad this time. It's a bit hard to work on because there's not a lot of room in there. No different to the standard engine and box, because it's the same band housing. This side there's loads of room. So the engine mounts, I have some tubing coming off here and then onto here. So it'll probably, so if you can see, come up and then across into that to support this side. So this is the sort of thing, that's the old one, but these brackets get welded on either side, so I can make that one up, so I can tack it as it is now and then take it off and fully weld it. This side is such a relief because the exhaust, it was a right mess. When I sent the engine away to get rebuilt, I sent the exhaust that I'd modified. It was an eBay exhaust, 4-into-1, but it just didn't work. It didn't fit at all with the steering column. So I had to cut it to pieces and then weld it all up, and it was a mess. So I sent it away when I got the engine rebuilt. Right, I got a torch, there might be a few shadows. Yeah, the guy who built the engine, he designed new cams for it, and he had actually designed an exhaust for it, which I had made when it was in the compacts, but it wouldn't fit this car. So this exhaust was like a temporary exhaust, but when the engine went back, he sent the exhaust to a guy who cut it all up and re-welded it. So I wasn't 100% sure if it was gonna clear everything and fit, but we've got the steering column that actually runs through the exhaust. And as for the engine mounts, that's just a bit of tube that I'm going to weld to. That will probably have to come forward and then across. So it's not far to go, and that will brace it well. So that was my biggest concern. I've just been speaking to exhaust company. I forget what they're called. Ashley Exhaust Company, and they make a. Yeah, I'm not sure where I got up to because I must have turned the camera off as I was recording the last time. Yeah, all fits. Very happy. Gonna weld the engine in. I've got the exhaust I had made, which I'll see if I can cobble up to this manifold, and I know that's a good exhaust. So I think that's it for this video. I'll keep you updated. It shouldn't be long before the next one because I've not got much time and I've got plenty to do.